All right. It is a great pleasure to bring in one of the leaders who helped to mold this new agenda. Joining me now, our good friend, Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio, who is the chair of the Judiciary Committee and author of Do What You Said You'd Do, Fighting for Freedom in the Swamp. Well, Mr. Jordan, you've done what you said you were going to do, so that's one good place to start. But, I think, prosperity, growth solves a lot of problems. And I think the reforms, the conservative reforms, all the reforms, give us a tremendous step in the right direction. Go ahead, talk to us about this story, please.
Well, Larry, first of all, your monologue was right on target. You can't lead militarily, you can't lead diplomatically if you first don't lead economically. And you can't lead economically when government continues to grow and grow and grow and stifle the private sector, which is what we've seen. That's why this rules package, understand, this rules package is designed to do one fundamental thing. Stop bills like that $1.7 trillion monstrosity that passed 16 days ago. Stop things like that from happening. That's why there's got to be 72 hours to see it. We actually think transparency helps limit the size of government, helps focus on the things that are going to grow our economy. So 72 hours, single subject, germaneness to when you're going to offer an amendment, it's got to be focused on that piece of legislation, which is single subject. That's all good stuff, and it's designed to put us in a position so we don't have legislation like that, which I actually think hurts our economy in the long run. And the final thing I'll say on this is why it's important to keep government small, because when government's small, liberty and freedom are greater. And right now we have a government that's growing like crazy and being used to go after we, the people, the weaponization of it. That's what this 118th Congress is about, stopping that and stopping the uncontrollable growth in federal spending.
Jim Jordan, you were on this show. I don't know if you were on last week, but the week before, you and I had this long conversation about the need for regular order, not only regular order in the budget, which is 12, a budget resolution and 12 appropriation bills, which you also talked about on the floor of the House last week when you nominated McCarthy. But all matters, there should be regular order. The committee system is being strengthened by these conservative reforms. That's the way I read it. And regular order and accountable and transparent, that's a really good thing, which the Democrats have blocked these many years.
Yes, and it involves the whole country, because then every single member of Congress representing 800,000 people in their respective district gets to weigh in via the committee, then on the House floor, time to look at it, time to put it together. That's what self-government and representative government is all about. We haven't had that under Democrats. It all gets decided by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden. That's not how it's supposed to work. And as I said on the House floor last week, in the history of our great country, only about 12,000 individuals have had the privilege of serving in the United States Congress. Each of them want to weigh in and be a part of the decision-making process. That's how it's supposed to work. So let's focus on that. That's what this rules package is all about, that we're going to pass later tonight. And then, as you said, I think in your monologue, then we're going to get about getting rid of the 87,000 IRS agents who are a further infringement and attack on Americans' liberty. So that's what we're doing on the first day after we had the speaker election last weekend.
So let's just focus on that. Legislation to rescind the $80 billion for the 170,000 IRS agents. Will that come tonight?
Yep. That's being debated and voted on this evening. We will pass that. I actually hope a few Democrats join us. We'll wait and see. But I know every single Republican is going to vote for that, because we know that this is a further weaponization of government. Those agents, we know who they're coming after. They're coming after the small business owner. They're coming after conservatives. That's why we want this legislation passed on the very first day.
Now, let's talk about the weaponization resolution, or the weaponization rule. You're going to chair the Judiciary Committee. Mr. Comer is going to chair the Oversight Committee. You got a lot of work to do on the FBI, on the intelligence agencies, on the Hunter Biden laptop. Who knows what you got work to do? Can you give us a little hint there? How are you going to start? When are you going to start? Where's this going to go?
Well, in our committee, I think we're going to focus on two issues. I think front and center of the Judiciary Committee, the border that's no longer a border, and then, of course, the political nature of the Justice Department. And there's going to be a select subcommittee that's going to focus on that. We've had 14 whistleblowers come talk to us about how political that place has become. We know it goes further than just there. It's the collusion between big government, big tech, big media. We've seen that now with the Twitter files and what they've exposed. So we're going to look at all that, because the first step in stopping it is to get the facts get the truth to the American people. And we have an oversight obligation. We have a duty to do this kind of investigative work, and we're going to do it consistent with the Constitution, but we're going to do it aggressively.
Jim Jordan, just for one pause, one little sidebar, the border that's no longer a border. President Biden is down by the border that I guess he's getting a look at for the first time in 2 years. What's going on with the border that's no longer a border, and what should go on in your judgment on this immigration fiasco?
Well, you go back to the policies that worked. You go back to the wall, remain in Mexico policy. Right now, Joe Biden has told the entire world, if you come to our border, there won't be a wall to go over. You won't have to wait in Mexico while we evaluate your claim. You'll get to come in, you get to go wherever you want to go. That's the message. So there's no wonder 5 million individuals have come to our country as illegal migrants and are now inside our border. So that's the problem. The thing that bothered me most, though, what Joe Biden said this past weekend, was when he said, you know, I wish Republicans would help us so we could solve this problem. And I'm like, you controlled all of government for 2 years. You had the White House, you had the Senate, you had the House. If there was some solution, but now he wants to say, oh, we're willing to work. You guys created the problem when you could have done something to address it. You didn't, and now you're trying to blame Republicans. Give me a break.
All right, so you don't expect much coming out of this meeting, I gather. I mean, it sounds like to some extent, I don't want to obsess about it, but some of these latest things about people coming in from certain countries for asylum is going to have more people coming in illegally. Yep. Instead of catch and deport, it's going to be more catch and release. I mean, tell me I'm wrong, but that's the way I'm reading it.
I think you're right. I hope that in this meeting in Mexico that he would actually talk about the Remain in Mexico policy that worked so well under President Trump's leadership. But we'll wait and see. I hope they do that, but I have my doubts. I got to be honest.
Can I tell you a couple things that I love? Let you weigh in on them. I love the idea that you all will be looking at a balanced budget over 10 years.
Yep.
I don't know if you can get there or not. There's a lot of economics to it. But I think as an organizing principle, it's a good idea. Here's another one that I love, Jim Jordan. No tax rate hikes unless you got a 3/5 majority, which basically rules out tax. So let me get this right. We are going to have lower spending and lower taxes at the same time, which probably equals lower inflation and more growth. Now, I'm being very simplistic here, but you're the leader. Tell me, am I being too optimistic, or is that where this story is going?
That's what we want. That's what we're for. Now, getting it through Chuck Schumer and the Senate and getting Joe Biden to sign it's a different story. But again, you understand how, you know this, Larry, you live this, the appropriations process. At some point, we're going to have a national debate when we get to that final appropriation process as we go through the fiscal year and we get to September 30th. So that's what we're pointing to, a better strategy for laying the groundwork to get the things that you just talked about, get those kind of things done, which will promote the economic growth, which allows us to lead diplomatically and militarily. And I always say, when America leads, the world's a safer and better place.
I don't mind, by the way. You know, there's all this talk by these liberal mainstream medias. If the debt ceiling is postponed, I don't care. Or put it another way, if people are worried about paying the interest on the 10-year Treasury, you're going to have revenues coming into the government, so go ahead, pay that. But meanwhile, you'll be able to drain spending from other things. I mean, I think make a stand on that. I'm an old Wall Street guy. I should be panicked about it, but I'm not. I mean, look, it's a trade-off, right? So a little later debt ceiling, if you get lower spending from that, I think that's a good thing.
Well, what we also long-term should be concerned about, actually short-term, frankly, is the $30-some trillion debt and the fact that this year looks like it's going to be somewhere in the $500 to $600 billion range in just debt service, in interest payments. Think Larry, we spent $800 and some billion on defense, and now we're going to spend almost as much in servicing debt. That, to me, is a real concern. All the more reason why we need to put in place the spending policy, the taxing policy that will help us begin to address that in the long term.
And final point, I'm going to go back to Newt Gingrich. You know, when Newt was pushing for the balanced budget, Newt got a balanced. I think he had 3 or 4 balanced budgets back in the 90s. Some people are criticizing you and others already. You're going to cut military spending. But military spending is not all military spending. And I think you made the point on one of the Sunday shows, I might add, not to demean, God forbid, I'm not demeaning a single officer in the American Army, but the ratio of generals to enlisted men and women has never been higher. There's a lot of woke in that budget. There's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. In other words, you don't have to have as I understand it, regular order. You'll decide, the process will decide. But military spending could come under the microscope, too. That's the point.
Everything has to be on the table. When you got a $30-some trillion debt and the interest payments are what they're going to be this fiscal year, you got to look at everything. But you do it in a way that doesn't hurt our troops, make sure our men and women in uniform get the pay raise they deserve. But we do have to look at general officer ratio to enlisted individuals, and we do have to look at all the woke nonsense that we see now in our military and the money that goes for things like that. So those have to be on the table. I think that's just good common sense. And frankly, I think the American people would agree with that.
Well, Jim Jordan, I think a lot of folks are behind you. We appreciate your coming on today. Good luck, sir. Congratulations.
All right. Thank you, Larry.
Take care.